Hello Commanders, I'm OUTLANDISHPIXEL. I'm not going to hide the fact that No Man's Sky's announcement trailer got me super enthused with the game's release. The idea of exploring planets throughout the universe, each with their own wildlife and interestingly coloured environments, sentient aliens and mysteries was, for me, something I'd craved for a long time. I grew up with some of the genres of games that are no longer prevalent, or at least are a shadow of their former self, and the space sim was one of them. This trailer got me excited for space again. Shortly after seeing the first trailer, I decided to buy Elite Dangerous as I needed a space fix ASAP, and unfortunately for No Man's Sky, ED set a very high bar on the gameplay mechanics level. So, now No Man's Sky is out and it's alright. It's a survival game in space, I guess. Similar to other survival games, that's my honest opinion. I may get a refund, I may not, but one thing's for sure, I'm in no rush to play it again. I'm not going to do a full subjective review of No Man's Sky, but I want to talk briefly about the hype train, and the developers, marketers, and consumers who were all along for the ride. I have always gotten excited for games. I love reading up on and watching trailers for games I want to play, imagining the gameplay in advance. As a kid, when I bought a new game, I remember reading through the manual on the car ride home. I got enthralled by certain developers and their franchises, to the point where I would try to convince people to play the games too. I remember always going on about Final Fantasy VII through 10 to my friends. In fact, I still do that to my girlfriend, as I want to see someone else build the same emotional connection to the series that I did. In essence, you could say I was like a brainwashed Square Enix PR monkey, but I didn't and still don't see it like that. If I have any loyalty to a franchise, it's usually because I appreciate the creative team's work, not the board members who talk about microtransactions in the next room. Now, I'm an older, adult-like person of sorts, some of the time, and whilst I love games, I feel like I can take a step back and still build an emotional connection to a piece of creative work, whilst being critical of the product as a whole. The best example is the Final Fantasy series and my thoughts on the more recent games, and Square Enix as a company, something I've made a video about before which I will link in the description. Perhaps up until Final Fantasy XIII, I had been hyping up the series, and the sudden bombshell of 13 being, well, not bad, but not the game I wanted, shattered that infantile obsession with the franchise that I'd had for so long. I'm not sure if it was at that moment that my global skepticism of the games industry was born, but it was a potential combination of that and my first realization that the industry was building a gross microtransaction and pre-order culture, a topic which now fuels many an emotionally charged YouTube video and forum discussion. The point is, personally, I'm now always skeptical about the games I think I'll love. Negativity is ripe within the games industry and consumer base, and various little elements of the game-saturated landscape all add up to make things seem so much worse. There are so many more games released daily than a decade ago, and the market is saturated with titles. Whilst having lots of choice isn't a bad thing, the question of value and how much a digital product is worth is debated constantly. Ultimate editions of AAA games worth $100 are sold, only to see heavy discounts within a couple months. Steam and other services constantly have sales, reducing the value of the industry as a whole. PlayStation and Xbox digital titles are more expensive than buying physical copies off Amazon, and these days AAA games are often riddled with microtransactions and gameplay imbalance, with business models similar to mobile games. The marketplace is almost a mess, without consistency and very anti-consumer. However, we haven't helped matters. We are still pre-ordering so that we get that extra gun skin or whatever, because we as humans love stuff. We always need more stuff. When you combine all this negativity with hype, you get a bad combination. We as consumers hype up games and fill in the blanks. We make YouTube videos about how awesome a game will be. There are No Man's Sky themed channels who have been hyping up the game and discussing things you could potentially do in it. The game was winning awards at E3 and other shows when it wasn't even a finished product, which is a great example of how the industry as a whole perpetuates the ridiculous hype behind some games. I think the more Sean Murray talked about his game, the more he started convincing himself that it was something so much more. In retrospect, all the hype was a bit silly from everyone's perspective. The game, in my and many other people's opinions, is not as amazing as the developer, publisher, journalists, or consumers made it out to be, and in the end, everyone suffers. Sean Murray and his team put their heart and soul into this game, and it was a passion project, and I believe that he was truly excited about his own achievement whenever I heard him talk. And now, he must feel awful. Death threats, bad press, negativity online, and who knows what the future of Hello Games will be. Sony, as the publisher, are seeing people asking and receiving refunds in various online outlets and physical retailers. A lot of consumers now feel angry at the dev and publisher, angry at the game, angry at the industry, and band together like angry online mobs. 90% of the player base stopped playing after a week of release. Obviously, Sony have made money, but who wins in this situation? Nobody does. And all that time you've either hyped up the game or been hyped up by the game was just time wasted. The thing is, it didn't have to be this way. The game is okay. It's not a bad game. It could have been a $20 indie release on Steam like any other survival game, and it would have done so much better than it is doing now, because it wouldn't have had an emotionally charged hype train behind it. I'm glad that I found my own balance between excitement and skepticism, because at the moment I need to stop myself from being disappointed. There is enough negativity in the industry as it is without us perpetuating it further. So, stop pre-ordering games, play what you already own rather than obsessing over a release years down the line, and always wait for reviews before you buy. It's that simple, really. Okay, thanks for listening, Commanders. I'll see you in the black.